I'd like to call this meeting of the Coventry Town Council to order at 6:01 PM. Clerk, please take the roll.
Councilmember Pasqua.
Here.
Councilmember Shockley. Here. Vice President LeBlanc.
Here.
President Lima.
Here, please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. In the event of an emergency, those present this evening can exit out doors labeled either 1 or 2 in the back of council chambers to the back parking lot or front lawn of Town Hall. Moving on to meeting minutes from prior meetings, we have 2 sets this evening: January 9th, 2024 open session and January 23rd, 2024 executive session. May I have a motion to take these minutes as a block?
I'll make the motion.
Motion by Vice President Blank.
Second.
Second by Councilman Pasqua. Any discussion? Clerk, please take the roll.
Councilmember Pasqua.
Yes.
Councilmember Shockley.
Yes.
Vice President LeBlanc.
Yes.
President Lima.
Yes.
4 in the affirmative, 0 in the negative. Motion passes.
Do I have a motion to approve the minutes of January 9th, 2024 and January 23rd, 2024 executive session?
I'll make the motion.
Motion by Vice President LeBlanc.
Second.
Second by Councilor Shockley. Discussion? Madam Clerk, did you receive any edits?
I did.
Were they made?
Yes.
Thank you very much. Any further discussion? My edits I submitted to the clerk were just grammatical. There were words that were spelled wrong. Any further discussion? Clerk, please take the roll.
Councilmember Pasqua. Councilmember Shockley.
Yes.
Vice President LeBlanc.
Yes.
President Lima.
Yes.
4 in the affirmative, 0 in the negative. Motion passes.
Moving on to proclamations, public commendations. We have one this evening. A proclamation for Black History Month. Whereas the history of democracy in the United States is one of struggle and triumph, equality and freedom denied from the beginning to Black Americans were only made truer as our country made strides to embody our founding ideals. Black History Month, first proposed by scholar Carter G. Woodson in 1926, seeks to rightfully center the role of Black Americans in our national narrative to tell a fuller story of our country. And whereas this year's theme, Black Americans in the Arts, celebrates the profound and evolving impact of Black artistry on our culture, national identity, and social movements that have spanned the world over. Through literature, music, architecture, dance, film, and every conceivable medium in between, Black artists and intellectuals have used their talents to honor their heritage, educate and inspire, and open minds and hearts. And whereas Black art has been a powerful agent of change and social uplift throughout our nation's history, many and varied forms of creative expression have had a pivotal role in opening new dialogues, challenging us to examine hard truths and inspiring us to work towards something better. And whereas during Black History Month, let us draw inspiration from this legacy as we continue together on the path toward equality, liberty, and opportunity for all. Our shared history shows us that we rise and fall together, an enduring lesson reflected in the words of Dr. Maya Angelou: the truth is, no one of us can be free until everybody is free. Now, therefore, I, Hillary Lima, Council President in the town of Coventry, Rhode Island, do hereby proclaim February 2024 as Black History Month. And I urge all citizens to join me in this special observance. Discussion from members of the council? Right. Moving to public comment on docketed items. Are there any members of the public who'd like to make a public comment on a docketed item? Any members of the public on Zoom, raise your hand to be let in and unmute yourself. Public comment on docketed items only. Going once. Going twice. 3 times. Public comment is now closed. May I have a motion to take the agenda out of order?
I'll make the motion.
Motion by Vice President Blank.
Second.
Second by Councilman Pasqua. We have a special guest presenting an executive session this evening, so I just want to give them an opportunity to get up front instead of waiting through the whole meeting.
Okay.
Any discussion? Hearing,
Are we going to do executive session as a whole first, or?
yes, as I understand it from the solicitor, the other items should be quick hits, just like last week.
Sounds
or
good.
last
Thank you.
meeting. Yep. Clerk, please take the roll.
Councilmember Pasqua,
Yes.
Councilmember Shockley,
Yes.
Vice President LeBlanc.
Yes.
President Lima.
Yes.
4 in the affirmative, 0 in the negative, motion passes.
May I have a vote to go into executive session to discuss the following? Item A, executive or closed session pursuant to Rhode Island General Law, Section 42-46-5A2 for litigation matters re Town of Coventry, notice of violation, dam number 176 and OCI-dams-20-17. Pursuant to Rhode Island General Law, Section 42-46-5A2 for litigation matters re Nicholas E. Cambio, trustee at all v. Commerce Park Realty LLC, and Matthew J. McGowan as receiver for Commerce Park Realty LLC at all v. Commerce Park Management LLC. And pursuant to Rhode Island General Law, Section 42-46-5A2 for litigation matters re Social Holdings LLC v. Town of Coventry. And pursuant to Rhode Island General Law, Section 42-46-5A2 for litigation matters re Town of Coventry via Neary Realty Incorporated et al., aka 1100 Main Street / Coventry Mart, and re Aisha LLC et al. v. Town of Coventry. And lastly, pursuant to Rhode Island General Law, Section 42-46-5A3 for security matters related to the cybersecurity, information security, and information technology infrastructure and systems of the town.
I'll make the motion.
Motion by Vice President LeBlanc.
Second.
Second by Councilor Pasqua. Any discussion? Clerk, please take the roll.
Councilmember Pasqua, Councilmember Shockley,
Yes.
Vice President LeBlanc.
Yes.
President Lima.
Yes,
4 in the affirmative, 0 in the negative, motion passes.
we'll now go into executive session. Could I have a motion to come out of executive session?
I'll make the motion.
Motion by Vice President LeBlanc,
Second.
second by Councilmember Shockley. Any discussion? Clerk, please take the roll.
Councilmember Pasqua,
Yes.
Councilmember Shockley,
Yes.
Vice President LeBlanc.
Yes.
President Lima.
Yes.
4 in the affirmative, 0 in the negative, motion passes.
May I have a motion to seal the minutes of executive session?
Make the motion.
Motion by Vice President LeBlanc,
Second.
second by Councilmember Shockley. Any discussion? Clerk, please take the roll.
Councilmember Pasqua,
Yes.
Councilmember Shockley,
Yes.
Vice President LeBlanc,
Yes.
President Lima.
Yes.
4 in the affirmative, 0 in the negative, motion passes.
Members of the public, the council met in executive session to discuss 5 items listed in our packet this evening. A discussion was had, no votes were taken. I'm now going to move to introduction of new matters before the council. Item A, presentation on Rhode Island 250 Commission by Lauren Fogarty, Program Coordinator for the Rhode Island Semi-Quincentennial 250 Commission. Welcome. Just make sure the mic is on, just push the tab up.
Thank you, Council President, council members. My name is Lauren Fogarty, and I'm the Program Coordinator for the Rhode Island Semi-Quincentennial 250th Commission, or RI-250. I know it's a mouthful. Thank you for having me here on behalf of Secretary of State Greg Amore this evening to discuss the creation of a local 250th committee. In 2026, we're set to mark the 250th anniversary of the signing of the Declaration of Independence. For some, this milestone may elicit memories of the excitement associated with the bicentennial period of our nation during the 1970s. And I'm here today to bring attention to this tremendous opportunity for each community across this state and nation alike. RI-250 has been charged with developing ways to recognize and honor this anniversary in our state. And the mission of the commission is to commemorate the 250th anniversary of our nation, the events throughout history in which our beautiful state has had a massive influence, and our largely forgotten role in the formulation of our nation. Most notably, our contributions to the ideals of freedom, equality, and independence. We at the Commission are most excited to help facilitate this milestone statewide and years-long multifaceted commemoration, and we intend to engage as many Rhode Islanders as possible. And we believe that the natural next step is to organize at the municipal level. So here I am today. One of the duties of the Commission is to collaborate with local organizations to promote the pivotal role that Rhode Island played in the founding of our country. And today I'd like to invite this council to organize a local committee here in Coventry to encourage public participation, promote tourism, and strengthen our state pride. I've shared with your clerk a pamphlet provided by the American Association for State and Local Histories, or AASLH, who have taken the reins on this project at the federal level. Although this information is directed for a larger scale commission like RI-250, I find that the resources and toolkit outlined in it are helpful for this endeavor, and the example of a working group seems like the best approach. This past year, our neighbors in South Kingstown were celebrating their 300th anniversary. The programming, academic resources, and public engagement have been significant. And I know that this town is no stranger to large milestones as well. The town marked their unique milestone with a lecture series on the town history, bonfires, and elevated regular events like their annual Arts and Culture Festival and something that they like to call River Fire. I think you can guess where they got that from. The town installed a 14-foot sculpture designed by the influence of their history and identity as a community in their town green. The opportunities are truly endless with milestones such as this semi-quincentennial. Commemorative events like the semi-quin can bring communities together and promote a sense of identity. There's so much progress to celebrate. During my time with RI-250, people look back on the bicentennial, and I think that we can make this the best commemoration yet. Secretary Amore envisions coordinated projects with each municipality that can include pop-up archives presentations, and today I've brought a small collection of the formative documents of Coventry and photographs that are maintained by the State Archives. These documents range from the act to incorporate the town circa 1741, the men able to bear arms census from 1777, the incorporation documents from local churches circa 1906, and a series of scenic photographs from around the 1920s. This is an example of the types of displays that can be curated at a Coventry at America's 250th event, of course, in coordination with the Rhode Island Department of State and State Archives. In addition, Secretary Amore hopes to coordinate projects with each municipality, including an evergreen program such as the Liberty Tree Project. This would see the planting of red maple trees in all 39 municipalities in a town park or green space of your choosing. And therefore, I come to you today to urge this council to establish a committee to mark this important milestone in our nation's history. And I'm happy to answer any questions that you guys may have about the formulation of a committee. Obviously, the native son of Coventry, Nathaniel Greene, is such a significant part of the American Revolution and really the formulation of our nation. He may have even been president. Who would have known if he hadn't been? George Washington wasn't in that role, and also his illness, I believe, prevented him. But we're very actively working with the Nathaniel Greene Homestead. Obviously, they're pretty active and certainly very aware of this milestone coming up, but we'll leave it to the municipality to decide what the best committee structure would be.
As a town, we already have historic committees and commissions. Is that a place that you think would be a good start, is to take those already showing an interest and engagement?
Yeah, absolutely. We are coming to the town councils because we want the municipality to decide. We want it to be a collective town event or programming for this milestone. And we've been encouraging towns to lean on these historical organizations, committees, commissions that exist. They're certainly well equipped and ready for a milestone such as this one.
And I think that commission we have as a town committee has representation from all of the historic sites in town already. So I think that would make a lot of sense.
Absolutely.
Any other questions for Lauren? Discussion? Manager Parrillo, I think a good place to start would be maybe to bring the materials that Lauren's brought this evening and shared with the clerk. I'm not sure how active the historic commission has been lately, but this seems like something that we should have them sink their teeth into.
Yeah, Maria Broadbent has volunteered to kind of take the lead at the administrative level and work with Norma Smith
Okay.
and her team to kind of take this over the finish line.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Any other discussion? All right. Thank you so much.
Thank you so
Sorry for the
much.
wait.
Worry about it.
All right. Continuing the bouncing ball. I'm going to move to resolutions. Item H, sewer tie-in application, 738 Tioga Avenue, Assessor Plat 38, Lot 99, Citizens Bank. This is pages 126 to 140 in your packet. Going to let Mr. Levesque in engineering introduce this.
So there's a commercial sewer application that was supposed to go before the sewer subcommittee and it got pushed to the council instead. I have Pat Walker here from Walker Engineering. She's going to present the project on behalf of the applicant.
Good evening.
Good evening. My name is Patricia Walker.
Is the mic on? Just pushed up.
Done it. There you go.
Okay. Thank you.
My name is Patricia Walker, PE, President, Walker Engineering Limited, 31 Vale Court, West Greenwich, Rhode Island. This is a fairly simple connection. It's the Citizens Bank on Tioga Avenue. They're doing some renovations and they're eliminating the septic system that's in the back, and they're going to tie to the sewer that's in the front. There was a stub provided. It's all gravity, very low flow, maximum 10 to 15 employees a day. So it's about 150 to 225 gallons per day as an estimate. Mr. Rose from West Warwick has reviewed it. Mr. Levesque has reviewed it, and everyone is fine. And like Joe said, we are here because we can't seem to get on that sewer commission meeting.
My apologies. To get discussion rolling with the council, do I hear a motion to approve the tie-in application?
I'll make the motion.
Motion by Vice President Blank,
I'll second it.
second by Councilor Shockley. Discussion from members of the council? Questions, comments? Councilor Shockley.
So this is just for my own information, but I see that they paid for the assessment back in 2005.
Correct.
Why?
because it was
The
probably
sewer
one of
ran
the
by
old sewer
property
lines.
At that time.
So they paid the assessment, didn't have to tie in at that time.
They
Now-
most likely had a septic system that was operational, so they never tied in. And now that's,
And now,
the septic system is failing, so they want to tie in.
but what we charged them back in 2005, that's what they'll be charged.
So
And-
that was the assessment. That was the initial, probably their share of the fee for the construction. So they paid it in full.
So they took care of the cost that happened in 2005 in 2005.
That's right.
That's
Yep.
kind of what I was looking for. Is this a cost that's suddenly going to be far more than $38,000 that they paid for before actually? So thank you. That answers my question.
Any further discussion? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Hearing none, clerk, please take the roll.
Councilmember Pasqua.
Yes.
Councilmember Shockley,
Yes.
Vice President LeBlanc.
Yes.
President Lima.
Yes.
4 in the affirmative, 0 in the negative, motion passes.
Resolution item G, 2024-17, affirming the award of a contract for roof removal and replacement for the Department of Parks and Recreation's Guy L. LaFave Community Center. We have Director Blumenthal here this evening to get discussion rolling. Do I hear a motion to approve the resolution?
I'll make a motion. I'll second it.
Third.
Motion by Vice President Blank, second by Councilmember Shockley. Director Blumenthal, welcome.
Thank you. So 25 years ago, the roof was replaced on the community center. A little over 10 years ago, it was decided to put foam insulation right above the sheathing. Unfortunately, that created a lot of moisture and pushed up the nails. So over time, a lot of the wood rotted. So we'll need to replace that. You go in the community center, you can see there's buckets to catch water. The water actually started going into our heating system. So it's absolutely necessary. And it was part of our ARPA funding.
Questions from members of the council, discussion?
Just to make sure, whatever processes that we're using now, we do not expect this to happen again.
Correct. Right.
And has everyone kind of looked at it with a fine tooth comb to say, okay, we've looked at the contingencies here and we're not going to throw more good money after
Absolutely.
bad. I want you to get your roof. I just want your roof to,
There's several eyes on that
To stay.
document. Absolutely.
Any further discussion? Clerk, please take the roll.
Councilmember Pasqua.
Yes.
Councilmember Shockley.
yes.
Vice President LeBlanc.
Yes.
President Lima.
Yes.
4 in the affirmative, 0 in the negative, motion passes.
Don't go anywhere. Item E, Resolution 2024-15, affirming the award of a contract for bus transportation services from July 1, 2024 to June 30, 2025 for the Department of Parks and Recreation to Ocean State Transit, page 99 in our packets. Do I hear a motion to approve the resolution?
I'll make the motion.
Motion by Vice President Blank,
Second,
second by Councilmember Shockley. Director Blumenthal.
It's the same bus company we used last year. It's the same bus company that the school uses. They were very good to us. They did not increase the per hour for holidays and Sundays, and they did not increase the mileage, like the per mile fee. The only increase from last year is the per hour Monday through Saturday, and it's only a few dollars more from last year.
Discussion from members of the council? Hearing none, clerk, please take the roll.
Councilmember Pasqua.
Yes.
Councilmember Shockley.
yes.
Vice President LeBlanc.
Yes.
President Lima.
Yes,
4 in the affirmative, 0 in the negative, motion passes.
thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Director McGee, come on down.
This is right.
We're gonna move to item F, Resolution 2024-16, affirming the award of a contract for emergency tow services for the Department of Public Works, pages 100 to 114 in your packets. Do I hear a motion to approve the resolution?
Make the motion.
Motion by Vice President Blank,
Second,
second by Councilmember Shockley. Director McGee.
Can you hear me now? Okay. This is a resolution to award emergency tow services for light, medium, and heavy duty for our vehicles at Public Works. Different stage of recovery than the police department uses. So we have our own separate list. We went out to bid, advertised in the Kent County Times, and we came back with 3 bidders. And the bidder before you is the lowest qualified bidder, well-known in the Kent County area. And we're recommending that they be awarded to Ronnie's Towing from Warwick.
Councilman Pasqua.
I guess just for clarification, lowest qualified bidder or lowest bid qualified bidder? You said lowest qualified bidder.
Lowest qualified, yeah, the bidders, we look at all, make sure they are qualified.
Yeah.
They can meet the specifications of the invitation to bid, and then we suggest based upon the lowest qualified bidder.
And they don't have anything, Sterry Street and all these other places that, you know, single anybody out, but like other companies of like, don't have any extra equipment that we would possibly need to make the job easier. They're all about equal.
Yeah, we had the 3 bids that came in. They were all within a matter of $10 to $20 per hour or per tow.
Gotcha.
But
It's
this
not
was
much.
not much. They were all pretty equal.
Gotcha.
And we will probably be coming back to the council within a couple of months to actually advertise for additional tow services, to make a tow list for Public Works also in the event that somebody's not available, that we have a second and third to look at. So we'll be going back out to bid for additional tow services.
Gotcha. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Further discussion? Manager Parrillo, I had forwarded you someone who was upset and felt like they didn't have an opportunity to put in a bid. Did you address that?
Yes, I did.
Okay.
Emailed him today, and I told him to look for the bid that's coming down in a couple of months, and he should put his application in for that.
Okay.
He missed the first one, but this one I will make sure he gets an application for.
All right. Thank you
Yep.
very much. Any further discussion? Clerk, please take the roll.
Councilmember Pasqua.
Yeah.
Councilmember Shockley.
Yes.
Vice President LeBlanc.
Yes.
President Lima.
Yes.
4 in the affirmative, 0 in the negative. Motion passes.
Moving to item D, resolution 2024-14 for the lease purchases of 3 sanitation trucks in the amount of $1,215,760 utilizing the Coventry Capital Lease Program. Do I hear a motion to approve?
I'll make the motion.
Motion
Second.
by Vice President Blank, second by Councilman Pasqua. Director McGee.
Good evening. Yeah, this is based upon the conversation of our last town council meeting. We received a bid from the company using Sourcewell bidding to purchase these trucks. They would still be 18 to 24 months away the minute we put the order in. And this would be on a lease purchase. And then I guess Director Civetti will explain more of that in the future, in a few minutes, about how that's going to fund it, but there'll be no funds needed for this fiscal year.
Councilman Pasqua.
Just to understand the process of DPW a little bit more, because I'm not too familiar with what you guys operate. You're large trucks like this. Is there an option to refurb a trash truck like that? Because I know like on fire apparatus, for example, they can send the truck away and for half the cost and a much quicker turnaround, they can just rip the thing apart, basically rebuild it from the frame up. Is that an option with these trucks?
I have not heard of anybody being able to refurbish them totally as if they're new. Our goal is once we get these 3 in here, we will start taking the trucks down one by one, the spare trucks at that point. We will then have them go do what you're saying, but they won't be a total refab because you still get the wear and tear based upon salts and degradation from the work going up to the landfill itself. So, but we will be going through each of those and that'll extend the life going forward.
Further discussion? Councilmember Shockley.
I had asked Director Civetti, but if just when you speak, you could clarify that so this year, we're thinking of putting money in the budget for trucks, the upcoming fiscal year, I should say. You know, when giving us the computation of how keeping in-house compared to going to an outside vendor, you I know there are additional things to that list. I believe this is factored in because of that yearly amount. Would definitely want to hear how leasing that would work, because then how are we also saving for other trucks in the future and for things like refurbing to the extent allowable, the trucks that we have. So I want to start getting all these costs together, that this is, that, we've committed to. Because the same as if we sold all our trucks to Mega, we'd kind of be locked into them. Once we start buying some trucks, we're locked in here. So I just want to get a much better understanding of the overall cost.
We won't be able to give you an overall cost because within 18 to 24 months, when the newer trucks come in, the conditions of the trucks then that will be able to be refurbished. I can't tell you today what that cost is going to be. So that's going to be an outside cost in refurbishing.
100%. I think costs, I don't know that we'll be able to say these are the exact costs that things are going to be in the future. I think what we do have to say, though, is this is how we're intending to put away for these costs. This is the percent we're planning on increasing the budget for public works moving forward. Because right now we're approving an expense for a budget we haven't approved yet. So, when you start thinking about that, you want to make sure that we're factoring in everything we can. And, I had thought of this amount that was put into the comparison at our last meeting, kind of as if we're starting an escrow fund for these trucks. But it seems like in year one, we're using our escrow fund for these trucks so it's not an escrow, it's a lease payment account. And I just want to make sure that we're factoring in as much as we can.
When the time comes that we actually have these vehicles, we will then put into our operating budget for that next fiscal year what the anticipated cost will be based upon the condition of the trucks. So you'll have those costs budgeted beforehand, so it won't be a surprise. But I can't tell you what that is until I see what the condition of the truck is at the time that they're taken off the front line.
Yeah, as I said, I'm not really asking for that. I'm asking for how much should we be putting away now for tomorrow. And it's really more a question for Director Civetti than for you, I think.
Further discussion? Hearing none, clerk, please take the roll.
Councilmember Pasqua,
Yes.
Councilmember Shockley,
Yes.
Vice President LeBlanc,
Yes.
President Lima,
Yes.
4 in the affirmative, 0 in the negative, motion passes.
Is item C you as well?
I think so.
Lucky guy.
Yeah.
Item C, Resolution 2024-13, affirming the award of a contract to purchase a 2025 Kenworth septic pump truck for $222,370 for Coventry High School septic system using capital revolving fund. Do I hear a motion to approve?
Make the motion.
Motion by Vice President LeBlanc,
Second it.
second by Councilor Shockley. Director McGee. Oh, I'm sorry.
So I'll start this off and then Kevin can pick up. So based on the timing of when this high school sewer project is going to be complete, in discussions with Fuss and O'Neill, Laura Macalini, we're looking at close to 2 years from today, so it's complete. With that being said, we're spending $1,750 a day by Mr. Plant to pump that high school for us. We're averaging minimum $9,000 a week. Protracting that out, it's about $700,000 to $750,000 over the next 2 years. This purchase of the truck is approximately $220,000. We've discussed actually not bringing the effluent to the Cranston location that we use currently, but actually being able to dump it at the Sandy Bottom pump station. We've talked to West Warwick about that. Joe's talked to the people he's need to talk to, and we think that's a definite possibility. So we see a savings there. So at the end of the day, we think it's $500,000 in savings right up front. The plan is to sell the truck when we're done with it. The sale of the truck ballpark around now is about 150 to 160,000 used. I hate to utilize our funds for a school problem, but unfortunately, I think the school's problem is our problem, and I think it's the best way to move forward. So that's why I put this forward, and then Director McGee did all the research, and that's where we are right now.
Director McGee.
Yeah, we looked at trying to buy used trucks, and there are very few used trucks with low mileage in the Northeast period. We're able to locate through a national web that buying a new truck allowed us to be able to take the day-to-day operation as far as breakdowns to negate the lowest part. Everything breaks, but a newer truck had less opportunity. And this is a 4,000 gallon tank. So we're looking at between 1 to 2 loads per day, 1 in the morning, 1 in the late afternoon. And our driver can continue to go about their route. We did the same research for vehicles that were 2 years old, and the 2-year-old vehicles with 70 to 120,000 miles on them, we're selling for $160,000 on the average, based upon a 200. So the overall cost is going to be, when we're done, is going to be between $40,000 and $60,000 as opposed to $700,000.
Discussion from the council. Council Pasqua.
So when I saw the agenda and I saw that on there, I've been looking at options that use fire trucks for other reasons. And so I know where to look for trucks like this. And I had seen a couple of, one of them that I found was a 2019 Freightliner with 40,000 miles and $110,000 with a 3-month warranty and a 4,000 gallon tank that's available in Miami.
This is the area I'm looking at in Hialeah, Miami. Those are the areas.
Yeah. And so that's, I had the question when I came in tonight that, why are we considering brand new when there may be some out there?
Because it's a 5-year-old vehicle and there is no backup. When that truck goes down, we don't have a second truck to put online when that's still going to flow. So we have to be able to have the surety that we're going to have something there that is going to be dependable on a daily basis, and then have a resale value. A 2019 vehicle resale is not the same as what we were selling a 2-year-old vehicle.
Mhm.
No. Any other, Councilmember Shockley?
So, the thought is to pay for this out of the capital revolving fund.
A little out of order. So
It even sounds sketchy to me and I'm involved in it. But why wouldn't we pay, whether or not we're going to have a capital revolving fund? Was it considered to have this be ARPA?
We could have, but in talking to Director Civetti, he feels that we have the money in the capital revolving fund to utilize that, and then we're going to replenish it once we sell the truck.
I had also asked what other options were available besides ARPA, and I had asked Manager Parrillo, based on what projects will be completed before the end of fiscal 24, what monies will roll over that could potentially pay for this instead. So we're basically putting dollars that weren't going to be able to be used this fiscal year from capital to this year.
I feel like we discussed something similar
Yeah.
last week and didn't want to do that, but it's a different project. So,
It's also a different amount of money.
it's a lot of money. My other question is, and I don't know a lot about these, but I'm not sure if we can look into them to decrease the length of the process. Would want to know when we're going to know about the grant from the federal government, the $3 million that we're depending on to actually move forward at all with this project at the moment. And based on when we're going to know about that, has anyone looked into grant anticipation notes? Like, should we take a loan to start the work and get this done while we wait for the federal grant if we know we're getting it?
So I talked to Lisa today. She's hearing from DC 2 weeks. We will know for sure. I also spoke to DEM today, and our facilities plan will be approved Friday. They have not had any responses during the 30-day FONSI period. So once that is approved, we're able to utilize the $540,000 that we have at the infrastructure bank to at least get the design and engineering done for this project. So that is the plan, is to use that money that we already have for design and engineering, and that's going to take us up till approximately December, a December timeframe. So worst case scenario, if we do not get that 3.2, we're going to reapply for next year's Senator Reed money. We think we're going to get it. Lisa is confident we're going to get it. Obviously, nothing's 100% guaranteed. Again, if we don't get it, I think the goal is to reapply for it next year.
So,
I think Solicitor Angel had an answer to another one of your questions.
Okay.
about Grant anticipation.
On the backfilling of the expenditure, after we get the grant, put the money back. Most federal grants by their very terms don't allow you to do that. You have to get the grant and then expend the money. You don't get to expend the money and then take those funds and backfill your source of funding.
like I said, I don't know about the product, but it's specific to receiving a grant. Like it's like a tax anticipation note, that sort of thing. So I just wasn't sure if anyone had looked specifically into that. If we know we're getting $3 million, it sounds like this is going to take us to December, no matter what, just to get the planning done, which we've discussed. But the more quick, if we're going to know in 2 weeks, you said, if we have this grant, and will we have it available as of next January if we do get it? So we'd be able to get started as soon as the weather.
I think what's important to remember here is that this problem exists whether or not we get this grant still. So in order to save money, whether or not that we had the stomach to fix this or the foresight to design and plan, I think we're taking the process in-house. We just heard saves us $500,000 regardless of if. So I think it's still a matter of.
No, I understand that, but I think there's a lot to say for selling this truck back as soon as we can, you know, to not let the process keep extending on and on. I see the economic wisdom insanely of buying this truck,
Yeah.
but I would like to see how quickly we can actually get the problem fixed, as opposed to seeing how many different ways we can take sewage to different locations.
I would say, you know, if we wanted to continue this to our next council meeting and wait and hear what happens with the federal grant, that's fine, but I think that's costing us an $18,000.
I think I've definitely heard me wrong if you thought that's what I said.
I'm throwing it out there because I've heard from 2 council members concerns about the proposed solution. So I'm just saying, if there's an appetite to continue, that's fine, but know that there's a cost of almost $20,000 that comes with that. Because what is it per week? Excuse me, we have public
talk
comment at the
around-
end, sorry. 9,000 a week.
Yeah. No, and I think the only thing I would say to Councilmember Pasqua's point is, if we're bringing it to a closer location and it's a truck with 40,000 miles on it, how many miles do these trucks expect to get? And with that short distance we'll be going, would we be able to use this truck for 2 years if it was used, and half the cost?
Vice President LeBlanc.
I personally think this is a great solution for this problem. It's going to save us a lot of money. Regardless, we're going to have to pump for a decent amount of time. And if we want to come up with like a loan or a different approach, I think we should invite the school committee to a town council meeting and see how much they want to contribute to said problem.
Yeah, I apologize. I was talking about that as a way to decrease the timeline of the overall project. I thought it was pertinent to the conversation that we're having tonight. I think we have to buy a truck in order to save ourselves hundreds of thousands of dollars per year for this problem. Really, I just thought we were having a discussion. So it seems I've ruffled feathers. I did not
No,
mean to.
You didn't.
But I want to make sure that we're thinking of everything we can for an unforeseen expense that's going to be ongoing. What are all the different ways we can come up with to work on the solution to this?
I think if we want to go down that road and do some more investigation, we could save 70, 80, 90, 100,000 up front buying a used truck. But like the director said, we're not able to kind of risk it, because if this truck gets sideways, we're back to $1,750 a day pumping with Mr. Plant. Nothing against Mr. Plant, but the goal is to try to save as much money as we can going forward. So if the council wants us to explore used options, we can definitely do that. I just felt more secure asking Kevin to look into new trucks.
And just a note also, that this company that we're looking at has a cabin chassis on the ground with a 3-week fit out with a tank on it. He's holding it for me without a deposit due tomorrow, just to see what the results are. If you decide not to, I'm not looking to get into the septic pumping business, believe me. One more thing that we have to add to our repertoire. whatever your decision, it's okay.
Councilman Pasqua.
Do we have guys to drive tankers?
I have several drivers that have tanker endorsements, yes.
Councilor Shockley.
Just with the speed at which we can get the truck, it does seem as if just a couple weeks of pumping eats away at the savings of looking for a different truck and then having to get it.
It'll become a wash, honestly. In my opinion. Any further discussion? Clerk, please take the roll.
Councilmember Pasqua.
Yes.
Councilmember Shockley.
Yes.
Vice President LeBlanc.
Yes.
President Lima.
Yes,
4 in the affirmative, 0 in the negative, motion passes.
thank you. We'll finish up the resolutions. Mr. Civetti, I think these two, are your creation. We'll go to item A, resolution 2024-11, authorizing the creation of the Town of Coventry Capital Projects Revolving Fund, pages 59 to 60 in our packets. Do I hear a motion to approve?
Make the motion.
Second.
Motion by Vice President LeBlanc, second by Councilman Pasqua. Director Civetti.
Good evening. So I believe at the last meeting, we discussed a little bit about the capital revolving fund. Now, we have the budget line item for the CIP annually. We'd like to roll that forward, which you did. This council did with the 2023 budget. Any remaining funds went forward. What we're proposing here is to continue to do that, the specific line item. But in addition to that line item, the town's been collecting interest on the ARPA funding. And unlike normal federal funds, the ARPA funding program says that any interest earned on those funds is not restricted. So we'd like to propose that we take the interest that's been earned on the ARPA funds and roll it into this revolving fund. To date, so from fiscal 22, probably till the end of January, or close to now, we've accumulated approximately 423,000 in interest income. So we'd like to take that interest income, roll it into the revolving fund. Any interest income that's continues to be earned on the ARPA funding, roll that into the revolving fund. And as I said, any unspent money in the line item that's specific for CIP would get rolled over to the ARPA fund on an annual basis. In addition to that, I think section 4 of the resolution talks about the town council and the town manager could also approve to transfer up to 150,000 of investment income from the general fund annually into that revolving fund. So if we budget, let's say 400,000 in the general fund for investment income, if our total income came in at 550, we could take that 150, put that into revolving fund. And what we're trying to do is to identify the revenue streams as well as the budget line items that are getting set aside for capital. Again, that's not a mandatory. It's just saying we can transfer up to 150,000 of investment income on an annual basis. And again, that's investment income from the general fund, not the investment income from ARPA, which is a separate item here saying we'll take all the investment income. What we've been doing is to try to maximize that investment income, trying to time with Director McGee, when the funds are going to be needed. We've been putting funds in 30-day CDs, 60 days, 120 days, just trying to make sure we balance it so we have the cash flow available as needed. And our interest rates we've been able to get through local financial institutions on those CDs been anywhere from 5% or just over 5% up to 5.69%. So we're trying to maximize, again, that interest income and take advantage of the federal government saying that's not restricted at this point. So we think that's a good way to fund that revolving fund.
Discussion for Director Civetti, Councilor Shockley.
So, but at one point, was it restricted? The interest on the ARPA money?
As far as I know, no, it's never been restricted. One of the first reports I presented, I did include the interest income on the report showing what we received as the grants or what we received from the ARPA funding plus the investment income. But then when we were doing some of the quarterly reporting, it was discovered that it's not restricted and does not have to get reported. So that's where I broke it out and stopped including it on the ARPA reports.
My only other question, if we're planning on funding this from interest, I like the idea of the cap, but I wonder, on a state level, and I probably don't have this perfect, but on amounts over what they budgeted for interest, X% has to go into a revolving fund. So I don't know if that's something we want to think about doing too, to put a bit of a mandate on it, so that we don't let this fund just continually whittle down. And we think about it on an annual basis as opposed to kind of letting it go by the wayside. Just an idea. I felt like Jamie right there.
The one item we did include in section 5 there, it talks about that at no point will we expend more than 50% of this fund on an annual basis to try to eliminate it from
Right,
getting wiped out,
But you have to keep, you can
funding
keep
it at
whittling
some
down,
points.
This suddenly you have 50 cents, then you have 25, then you have 20. So just a thought, like I said, anything above and beyond what was expected for that sort of gain that the town requires, putting a percentage here.
Councilman Pasqua.
But just so I understand this, there's a cap of $150,000 put on on transferring from the general fund into the revolving fund. So why would there be a cap? If we didn't spend, if we had extra, let's say we had more than the 150 or, whatever, why would we cap ourselves to 150? Why couldn't we transfer more if we had it?
Well, again, I think it's two different things. So if we budget 500,000 in the CIP, only spend 100,000, that 400,000 is going to CIP. Whatever's in that CIP line item is always going to go to capital. So we would rarely do that on day one of the fiscal year. As soon as this council passes the budget, day one of the fiscal year, we would take that full line item of 500,000 or whatever it is, transfer it into the capital, and then all expenditures would get spent out of the capital revolving fund. The 150 that we were proposing from the interest income is just additional funding. So saying, okay, we know we may have unspent capital. It's already going to be there, but let's, as Councilmember Shockley just mentioned, let's continue to fund it on an annual basis. And in order to do that, if we're receiving more money than budgeted on investment income or interest income, let's just transfer over there and we just pick the cap, to be honest with you, of 150,000. Whereas the rest would stay in the general fund, which if we have other shortfalls, and we weren't mandating the 150,000, because let's say we have, not to pick on the town clerk, but her office didn't generate the revenue that was in the budget. She's just here to my left. But if her revenue didn't generate the budget that, the amount that was in the budget, and we had a shortfall, we may need that interest income to stay in the general fund to keep our general fund balanced.
And the revolving fund is restricted to 50%. So if we put that money in there, we'd only be able to really pull out part of it if we needed to.
For capital at
For
all
capital.
times. Right.
Gotcha, okay.
And this council, would still stay involved, obviously, in improving the capital expenditures out of there. At any point, if the fund built up to a significant amount and the council felt a need to pull some out and put back in the general fund, you do have that ability just by, motion of this council and through a resolution transferring the funds.
Gotcha.
Vice
Thank
President
you.
Blank.
Correct me if I'm wrong here. I don't know the charter by the back of my hand, but I'm pretty certain that I thought I had read one day that any surplus that we have, if it's over a certain amount, we actually need to contribute to the pension plan or some of the pension plans is what I had thought our liability. I don't know if that's accurate, but I do remember reading that at some point. So I just wanted to throw that out there. And I feel like this is a way of taking some of that surplus away from that, kind of what our charter says. But I just don't know if anybody recalls that from our charter.
Mr. Angel.
I don't, and I'll be happy to look at it for you and get you an answer.
Okay. Because I feel like we're kind of skirting that by doing these type of rollovers to the next year kind of items. And I just know that our police pension in particular is on a list. So I would prefer that we fund that. But I also prefer that we fund capital too. So.
Yep.
The council has the ability to make those decisions before those funds are put in. You can put a stop to that. The other thing I wanted to point out, which I it hadn't really occurred to me until Director Civetti said this. If, for example, the reason why the federal government, when they did the ARPA fund, Treasury released like 400 and some odd pages of regulations as to what you can and can't do with them and why. The reason why the feds unrestricted the interest earned on those funds is so that the municipality would have the opportunity, or the governmental entity would have the opportunity, to transfer that interest money out before the expiration or the deadline by which you have to spend ARPA funds. Because if they sit in that ARPA line item and you say, okay, you know, say you get $20 million and you spend your $20 million and you forget to spend the interest, it happens, and there's interest left, guess what? Goes back. So it's really a wise idea to take that out.
Thank you. I just wanted to ask.
I just had a question. So we're using the term resolution and ordinance interchangeably, and I just want to be careful because a process for approving an ordinance is much different than this. And in section 6, we say this ordinance shall take effect upon passage. We need to be careful there because ordinance is something that would actually go in the charter. Resolution is not going to go in town law. So I want to clarify if it was your intent for this to become law or just a resolution.
In this case, it could be a resolution where I would say generally under the accounting standards, which I'm referring to, is when we want to commit funds. The committed funds are supposed to be through a top level authority, which in a town council, you know, would be the town council, but that would be an ordinance.
Yeah.
But I've seen it interchangeable. So it can certainly go as a resolution. We could change that line there.
I do have a couple of amendments I'd like to see. I'll make a motion in a moment. Line 20, it should be through an annual appropriation, not and. Line 25, capital fund, singular use of the word. And based on my comment, line 81, this resolution shall take effect upon passage. And so I'll seek a motion to make those amendments. Motion by Councilman Pascal,
Second.
second by Councilor Shockley. Any discussion on those amendments? Clerk, please take the roll.
Councilmember Pasqua,
Yes.
Councilmember Shockley,
Yes.
Vice President LeBlanc,
Yes.
President Lima,
Yes.
4 in the affirmative, 0 in the negative, motion passes.
Discussion is back to the resolution as amended. So I wanted to touch upon Vice President LeBlanc's point. I'd be curious to know if it's any surplus at all. Just because that would mean pretty much any revolving fund is out of the question. And I can't believe that that's true because, I mean, anything left over from snow, sand and salt, that would mean that would have to go into pension. Anything left over, I think we've talked about, we've had a couple of other revolving funds that we've created. So you do have the answer?
No, okay.
Oh, you'll get the answer. I don't think it handcuffs us from being able to approve this tonight, but I do think we should get clarity on that. If you could bring it back in your next report. Is there any further discussion on the resolution as amended? Hearing none, clerk, please take the roll.
Councilmember Pasqua,
Yes.
Councilmember Shockley,
Yes.
Vice President LeBlanc,
Yes.
President Lima,
Yes.
4 in the affirmative, 0 in the negative, motion passes.
Item B, Resolution 2024-12, authorizing the creation of the Town of Coventry Capital Lease Fund. This is pages 61 to 62 in our packets. Do I hear a motion to approve the resolution?
Make the motion.
Motion by Vice President LeBlanc,
Second.
second by Councilor Shockley. Director Civetti.
Thank you. So what we're looking here is to establish another capital projects fund in accordance with the accounting standards. And basically it's where we would self-finance equipment that's purchased. So looking at the available cash flows that we have available, you know, revenue that's sitting in reserves. If we have the cash available, rather than going out and financing at a 6 or 7% rate when we're only maybe getting a 4% rate of return, self-finance the purchase, and we would still budget it like a normal debt service. So what would happen is when we purchase the item, we would record the expenditure in this capital lease fund. That capital lease fund would show a deficit for that expenditure purchase. But then annually in the budget process, we would budget a line item for the debt service off of the capital lease, which is basically just funding that acquisition. So rather than budgeting that line item in the general fund and paying it out to a vendor, a financing agency, local financial institution, we'd be repaying ourselves. So again, we're just looking at this, and of course we would have evaluate it, bring it to the council when we're looking to utilize it. And the key thing would be looking what interest rates we could be, getting on our own funds versus what we'd be paying to finance it outside of the town hall. So again, just looking to save the taxpayers and the town some money by self-financing rather than incurring interest to an outside institution.
Discussion from the council? Councilor Shockley?
So how would we initially plan on funding this?
The initial funding wouldn't be, I don't believe we had anything here that talked about initial funding. It's just establishing it. But the example that we just had with the sanitation vehicles, in fiscal 2025, we're looking to budget a line item for 190,000 was what was in the presentation at the last council meeting for a debt service payment. We would take those funds, put them into the capital lease fund, and start building that as essentially your lease purchase. So now when we buy the vehicle, we would have some funds already available for that 1 year payment. And then annually that payment would continue to flow through the capital lease. So we would not budget the purchase of that, what you just approved. That would never show up in your general fund as an expenditure. That would show up in your capital projects fund, the capital lease fund, as an expenditure. And then every year, if it's 190,000, would flow into that capital projects fund. We could certainly fund it with other resources going on as the general fund. As we prepare budgets annually, we may say, okay, we can budget an extra 50,000 or whatever that number is to put in there for future purchases. But at this point, there's no initial funding for that fund.
But at this point, that would be what this would be paying for, would be the sanitation trucks. Like, I know this could be set up for into years and years and decades to come, but right now we're setting it up as a way to pay for these sanitation trucks. So a proposal we already approved 15 minutes ago.
It could flow through there. That could be an opportunity. But again, if we look at the sanitation vehicles and we look that we can get financing outside for 4.5%, and I'm getting 5.5% on our money, we're going to go outside and borrow it for the 4.5%. So we're going to look at that. I think that was one of the options in what you just approved, that we may finance it through this fund, or we could still look to finance it through outside financing agencies. But that's where we come before the council. And the council would say, okay, yes, we're going to finance this through the capital lease fund, and we want to pay for it over 5 years. So then we'd have to make sure we included over 5 years or 7 years, whatever your pleasure is, that amount in the
Same way you do
annual
debt
budget.
service.
Right. Because right now we're looking at, I believe the interest rate the director received was around 5.5%, 5.47%, which would be about 209,000 a year. Whereas if we financed it ourselves, went over the same 7 year period, starting off early, you're looking at maybe 178,000 a year. So there's some
Okay, I'm going to ask a
significant
question
savings.
that's probably going to sound so stupid, and I apologize in advance for that. So we're getting these trucks. We can't pay for them. Like, it's not like we can give the other, I know we're leasing them, but it's not like we can give the company the full $1.2 million to buy these trucks without
could.
financing in some way. I guess I'm wondering, how do we self-finance if we don't have the upfront money? Like,
I think we do have the upfront money. We have money sitting in reserves. The town's not broke. There is money sitting in reserves. Obviously, there's times when our fund balance gets tight, but we do have funds that are sitting in reserves. But that's what I'm saying. We'd have to look at,
okay, so
as we're
that's
finalizing the audits, that's what we'd have to look at and say, okay, rather than having, $1.5 million sitting over at XYZ Bank, let's take that, do the purchase, because we haven't touched that $1.5 million in the past year or so. It's just grabbing interest. let's utilize it to purchase these vehicles, and then we'll basically replenish that.
Gotcha. Okay, because that's where I was lost, where it hadn't occurred to me to go into the fund balance for it. So, okay.
Any further discussion? I have the same edit from the last one. I'll be making a motion in a moment. Line 60, this resolution shall take effect upon passage. Do I hear a motion to amend the resolution?
I'll make the motion.
Motion by Vice President Blank. Second by Councilman Pasqua. Any discussion on the amendment? Hearing none, clerk, please take the roll.
Councilmember Pasqua, Councilmember Shockley,
Yes.
Vice President LeBlanc,
Yes.
President Lima,
Yes.
4 in the affirmative, 0 in the negative, motion passes.
Back to the resolution as amended. Any further discussion? Council? Councilmember Shockley?
Just finally, by approving this resolution, at this moment, we're not actually costing the town anything. We're saying this is something we may do. We've created the possibility of doing.
That's correct. We'd come back to you and the council would determine to finance whatever we're purchasing and the length that we're going to finance it over. That's correct.
Thank you.
Any further discussion? Clerk, please take the roll.
Councilmember Pasqua, Councilmember Shockley,
Yes.
Vice President LeBlanc,
Yes.
President Lima,
Yes.
4 in the affirmative, 0 in the negative, motion passes.
Director, if you want to stay up here and do your report while we have you. January 2024 budget to actual and balance sheet as of January 31.
All right, so it's going to be very brief because I forgot my cheat notes in my office. But I think everybody received the package that shows the 7 months. So through January 31st, 2024, where we stand. Again, approximately 58% of the budget or of the fiscal year is expired at that point. As you have in the notes that I provided, and I know I did receive a couple of questions from some of you, but I'm happy to answer any other questions. Again, the way we're trending a lot of line items, it looks like we're a little over, will be excess revenue coming in, which is positive things. We do have a few line items which were pointed out in the past, some of the DPW and sanitation where we have expected overages. As we mentioned, the last meeting, police department, although their overtime was over, working with the police chief and his staff there, we feel that they're probably going to come in within budget, looking at the department overall. So again, at this point, there's nothing that I think's in here that's causing me to believe that there's going to be any shortfalls at the end of the year. Yes, there may be some departments with little, some overages, but I think that's offset by some savings in other departments as well as by excess revenue coming in. So again, if you have any specific questions, I'd be happy to answer it on the budget versus actual.
Discussion questions for the director? Right, thank you.
And then just, if
Yes.
I can, so then just on the balance sheet, again, the balance sheet's very rough. I know Councilman requested one, but there are adjustments that need to be made there. As you look at it, you'll see there's one bank account that's showing a negative. Obviously, it's not negative. We're working on adjusting that. And we do have to tweak through some of the receivables, but I'm hoping when I'm in front of you next month, the second meeting next month, give me a couple more extra weeks, you'll have a balance sheet where you'll see that negative gone and be more up to date because the auditors will have everything for, for their 23 process and 24. We'd be all set.
Vice President LeBlanc.
So will that be a part of your reporting package going forward? The balance
Yes,
sheet?
I'll certainly include
Okay.
the balance sheet every month. Correct.
Any further discussion for the director? Right, thank you. I'll move on to the solicitor's report.
In keeping with the theme of executive session, I'll be brief. Nothing to report on item A or B at this point. That there is placeholders. Mr. Civetti and I is still facilitating information between us as the budget approaches. And the licensing fee is there as a placeholder for budget time, which we expect to propose some changes.
Yes, tonight I'm looking for ratification of a architectural contract with RGB. So as part of the governor's community center grant that's occurring next door, We have $2.8 million coming our way. Part of the process was to get, after we gave him our initial plans and ideas in stage 1 and in stage 2, stage 3 requires an architectural person, if you want to say, to kind of verify what Kevin's ideas are and kind of put them into practice and give us a budget for the 2 years of the project. So that's what's in front of you. Just so you know, all the money gets fronted to us for this project. So nothing up front for us. They give us the money in stages as planned, and then we give it to the architect, we give it to the builder, the contractors, whoever's performing that work for us. So this is the contract looking for ratification from the council.
Do I hear a motion to ratify the contract with RGB Architects?
Make the motion.
Motion by Council Pasqua,
I'll second it.
second by Councilor Shockley. Discussion on the contract. Councilor Shockley.
Do you mind giving just more details as to what the overall project is going to be?
So we're renovating 36,000 square feet next door at the annex. New roof, new parking lot, new fixtures. The bus company is going to be vacating the property. Their contract's up this year, and the school department has them going out to bid. But they will not be in that building because we will be utilizing it for this transformative space that we're putting together. So the goal is to build this center over the next 2 years with that 2.8 million. And then for the next 5 years, we've committed to the state that we will run programming out of there related to education, workforce development, and health monitoring. So Director Robelard has MOUs with several different community groups between CCAP and Rhode Island Department of Labor and Training and some others to provide resources for that facility. There's probably going to be some need down the road to maybe hire some part-time staff to help run it. It's going to be a Monday through Friday operation. But again, this is kind of the end of the stage process, and we really should be getting funding within the next quarter to start the process of building.
Further questions on the contract? Councilor Pasqua.
So we're gonna provide the DLT services and all those sort of community support services.
In that building,
Um,
yes.
And we're gonna remain using it for town stuff like we are as
Correct.
well.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I've heard like community center when we've talked about this, but I think a lot of people, they think a community center like a more of a recreational facility.
Yeah.
But that's not really what this is gonna be.
No, it's really gonna serve the community in various aspects. We plan on having someone there that teaches you how to build a resume, how to do interviews, how to do Zoom interviews. We're gonna really upgrade the facilities there. We're gonna have people there that provide CDL licensing, different capabilities along those lines. On the education side, after school tutoring, GED, it's a host of activities. For the health monitoring, we're going to utilize CCAP, who's already in Coventry. They've agreed to have someone there and be able to set up most likely a program regarding opioids. We have a lot of money in that, which is, you guys will be getting a memo from me on that. So something like that. So it's really a fully functioning aspect of the community that everyone kind of has a piece of. It's not just recreational or community involved. It's really, I think it's going to be a foundational building for the future. And then after the 5 years are over, we can keep it as is, or we can use it in any purpose that the town wishes.
Gotcha. Thank you.
Further questions on the contracts? Hearing none, clerk, please take the roll.
Councilmember Pasqua,
Yes.
Councilmember Shockley,
Yes.
Vice President LeBlanc,
Yes.
President Lima,
Yes.
4 in the affirmative, 0 in the negative, motion passes.
Council President Communications, just a couple of announcements. Oh, sorry.
I just want to point out for Councilwoman Shockley's benefit that if we don't make the 8 o'clock time frame, it falls to one person. I just put that out.
I'm very engaged. I can't help it.
I think he was blaming me.
I was blaming I thought I was asking a lot of questions.
No.
I wasn't blaming you. I tried to
No.
make a joke. Actually.
Yeah.
I'll go to 8:10.
I'm sending in the dry cleaning bill for the bus tracks over me. Council President Communications, just a couple of announcements, this evening. Earth Day cleanup, I got the notice from our, new recycling coordinator, in DPW. That's April 20th. I know many of you have volunteered in the past to clean up an area in town near your home or in your neighborhood. I'd ask that you do so again and be in touch with DPW to do so. So that's pretty self-explanatory. Direct on the next item, Manager Parrillo and I actually took Luke Murray up on his offer, and we had a meeting about digitizing town services and using OpenGov, our own subscription, to our advantage. So we did kind of a play-by-play of how they use OpenGov for people to digitally file APA requests, and how that's a workflow that it's all done electronically and there's a record of it all there digitally. And he also showed how they, and I know this is a goal of the town clerk in the coming year, but doing all licensing through OpenGov as well, getting rid of the paper forms people fill out and having them all fill it out through this portal. We then could collect businesses' emails, which could be super valuable. They all have a login. I mean, it's really low hanging fruit. So the town manager and I are hoping to connect with the clerk and Mr. Houghton soon to talk about how we can start implementing some of those changes. So I just wanted to provide people an update on that. Manager Parrillo and I last Tuesday attended a leadership lunch. We were invited by the governor. He's conducted a few of these. He meets with batches of municipal CEOs to basically just hear from them what the issues are. I went and we conveyed a list that had to deal with flooding and sustainability resistance, wastewater, stormwater management. I talked about our sewer program where it's trying to stand up. I also brought up, I put fire districts on the radar just so they're aware, because there's several pieces of legislation that would affect specifically with employment in fire districts coming up that are proposed right now. And then I also just brought up as well, you know, it's something we hope that the state is looking at in terms of enrollment is dropping across the state for a majority of the school districts. And, you know, what is the governor's office doing to prepare for what could be, is pretty much catastrophe and tension and vitriol everywhere. So we put those on his radar. His chief of staff and other members of his cabinet were there to listen. And they said that they would stay in touch with us. I'm happy to report as well that the governor's director of municipal affairs and the governor himself looked at Dan and I and said that they appreciate what Coventry's done in the last 2 years to stabilize the community, and they're very impressed, and they said keep up the good work. So I wanted to pass along those compliments from the governor's office to you guys as well. I just blew through 3 things. Any questions on any of those before I go to the next ones? Okay. I wanted to give a shout out. Director Robillard is hosting the first trauma-informed practice training. He secured an over $400,000 grant for that, and it's in association with Rhode Island College. I know that Councilman Pasqua knows what this is. He's looking to conduct a few of these over the course of the year. So that training is tomorrow night in the Naughty Oak Room from 6 to 8:30. And that's open to community leaders, anyone in the school department, police department, town hall. But they're really just looking for the community to step up to the plate and participate in this training. So I just want to throw that out there. I had sent an email. I forwarded along the St. Patrick's Day Parade for West Warwick. We've participated in it in the past. It's right down the street. It's a really short parade, really quick. It's actually on St. Patrick's Day this year, which is a Sunday. It starts we all meet at, I think, 11 or 11:30 outside Ionati's Funeral Home on Washington Street. Just let me know if you plan to participate so we know to expect you. I also opened it up to town employees and department heads if they'd like to participate too. So more the merrier. In your packets, you have the budget calendar. I just wanted to review that. Please make sure that you have those extra dates on your calendar. I only say that because in my first few years on the council, they crept up on me and I was like, what? Oh, we have a meeting tonight? There are weekend dates, there are Monday, Tuesday dates. So just please make sure that you have those on your calendar. What? Yeah. I've got 2 minutes. There was stoppage time there. There was stoppage time. The Rhode Island League of Cities and Towns annual convention, that is going to be Thursday, March 21st at Crown Plaza. All of us up here as members of the league are invited to go and register. It's free. And it's essentially just professional development for us. And I mean, the sessions are usually timely and topical and very useful. And I've gotten a lot out of it. I've gone 2 years in a row. So if you have time, and you don't have to stay for the whole thing. I go to maybe 1 or 2 sessions to go back to work. It's totally up to you. But if you do plan to attend, just make sure at any point during the day, just make sure you register on their website. Lastly, I wanted to go over, you have a packet up here on the dais. At the end of December, I reached out to all of our department heads and I just was thinking ahead to the budget process. And I just asked them, I asked them, I think 4 or 5 questions, looking to get a sense of where, how'd you do this past year? What are some of the highlights? And what didn't you get to do this year that you want to make sure you get to next year? What are your priorities for the coming year? So I'm not going to read the whole thing. I'd ask you to take a look, especially what I found important about this was oftentimes when budget season comes and we have directors come in front of us for those workshops in March, we don't know their side of the story. We know that the conversations happen between the town manager and the department, but it's nice to get them some background as to what happened last year and what are you looking to do in the next year. So I just wanted to start this dialogue. I think there's some great data in here in terms of what we did. I think we made some huge strides. You can see in here, we've got the tax collector who, that office is looking to implement online payments for taxes and to get rid of the service fees, to offer 2 options to taxpayers to be able to pay their taxes. Human services as well. They were able to secure, numerous grants in the last year. They still don't have the vans. Those are being built. And he has it on his radar to formalize a plan for the use of the opioid settlement funds. And then in there as well, just some great stats on what the touch and the reach of that department has been. Police as well. The highlight really for them was how much they got in the community this year. That was one of their goals. And being pretty much at every event that Parks and Rec did, the school department did. You can see there's some stats on their service. Moving forward, they need to implement and really start the body camera program. The chief had put in some notes about starting conversations about solutions for firearms range and training and practice locally. And then, of course, officer recruitment and retention is still an issue. IT, we already talked about an executive session. I won't go into that too much for security reasons, but you have that there. Parks and Rec, pretty self-explanatory. I think it's worth looking at some of the stats in terms of the revenue she was able to bring in comparatively year over year. The total registrations comparison year over year. And then also the activities offered. I mean, it's pretty incredible what she's been able to do. And then, her capital request should be no shocker as well there. The library, Megan also shared what they've been up to. She's looking to increase her outreach librarian to full time, so that shouldn't be a shock if we see that request come up. And they're looking to purchase a vehicle that can be wrapped and marketed as the library to increase visibility and just keep getting out into the community. The town clerk, we kind of already talked about this, but basically the main goal is the digitization and going online with all of our licensing. Some of that was already done this year with Vital Records, but we're going to keep chugging along with that. Engineering, you saw Mr. Levesque was here this evening. A lot of forward progress on some huge initiatives in town that we've been talking about for a couple of years. Upper Dam Pond, Lake George, our pump stations, the Tyoke Elementary School drainage issue. A lot of these were able to get started or design work began, but they're looking to finish these in the next year, calendar year. The big accomplishment he was most proud of was hiring an engineering tech, which starting March 1st is assuming in-house operation and maintenance responsibilities for our pump stations, which is huge because that was being done by an outside contractor before, which was expensive. And lastly, Doug's memo was pretty short. It was the legislative changes that were levied down. That was the biggest piece. He wasn't here for a full year. And then the return of the CDBG application process. I think it was close over 15 years that this town hadn't applied for a CDBG grant. That was huge. Public Works, department we never talk about. The Pave It Forward program was huge. We are paving the remaining 23 of 31 roads this spring that we were able to fund this year between the grant from the state and the matching funds from the town side. You guys have all seen the Welcome to Coventry signage. The streetscape program has started. And then you can just see some stats there in terms of what kind of load that they're carrying over there. And then finally, the building office. One thing to note that Mr. Phelps pointed out was half of their staff is turning over, believe it's retirements in the coming year. So just something to think about. And then the other thing he called out, which I found interesting, was the town of Coventry's building code effectiveness grading schedule, where we rank significantly higher than the state average. So something, just if people didn't know that, I didn't. He helped explain to me what all that meant. So I know I kind of just ran through that. I'd encourage you to take some time and look through it. I want to thank the department heads and their staff for putting this information together. I think it's an important link between the council and the work that's happening every day. So, and it's also the town too, as well, to know the kind of output we're getting and what their goals are. So that's all of my communications. I don't know if anyone has any comments or questions. All right. With that, I will move to public comment for undocketed items. Are there any members of the public who'd like to make a public comment on undocketed items? Just come to the podium, state your name and address for the record. We have someone on Zoom.
Good evening, Nick Longo, 5 Autumn Ridge Road. I just wanted to thank Director Civetti for his work on creating the Capital Improvement Fund. I think that with the creation of that fund, it's truly elevating government operations to a new level. And that I think that with dedication to maintaining that fund, even during hard financial times, will make all of the council persons' job much easier when it comes to replacing roofs and all of these big expenditures that in the past have thrown the town into a tailspin. This capital improvement fund is the answer for a much more stable future. So I just wanted to thank Mr. Civetti for his work. And that's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Longo. Any other public comment, Zoom or council chambers? Just raise your hand. Going once, going twice, 3 times. Public comment on undocketed items is closed. At this time, I will seek a motion to adjourn at 8:07 p.m.
Make the motion.
Motion by Vice President Blank,
Second.
second by Councilmember Shockley. All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Chair votes aye. We stand adjourned.